Right, just before you go to the really exciting part of the day, look at this special little fellow. I can't find him in the book, so I'm going to dub him the boxing mantid. Look at him, he's a praying mantis. Watch how he follows my finger around. And now, if I can try and make him, he was trying to sort of punch me earlier. There we go. Isn't that amazing? Poor little fellow, and he's only got one feeler left. His other one's been bitten off or fallen off. So the praying mantises, for those of you who don't know, are a predatory group of insects, and they will find other insects to eat. And on the inner side of this little boxing gloves that he's got here are spines that they will use to catch their prey with, very spiky things. And on a big praying mantis, they can draw blood if they want to. But this little chap is not a particular threat to human beings. But you can see as he extends forward there, you might be able to see the kind of hooks on the front of the boxing gloves, and that's what he uses to catch his prey. No toxins, and they normally just sort of bite and then suck out the insides. Isn't that spectacular? I wish I knew a bit more about them. They will lay eggs, of course, as will all, and they can fly. This one, I don't know why this one hasn't flown away yet, but they can certainly fly now. He's just punching forward in a sort of threat display. And then they make a very distinctive egg sac called an ootheca, and that egg sac is a sort of silken, quite hard but silky casing that they hang in trees, and very distinctive and easy to find. And unlike many of the insects, they don't make larvae. So when they're born, they sort of resemble the adults, and then they molt. Look at that. Can you see that, Jeandre? Cleaning the feeler. Running the feeler all the way through the jaws to clean it. So even the insects are concerned about how they look. In fact, your common garden variety cockroach will do the same thing. Oh, and there's the... It's a question from Jennifer in Toronto that I'm not sure if I've heard correctly. I'm just going to ask, before I make a horrible mistake, I'm going to get the question again for you from Jennifer. Do caterpillars have sex? Thank you, Jennifer, for that question. Caterpillars don't, in fact, have sex, and that is because caterpillars are the larval stage of moths and butterflies, so they can't breed. Only the adults have sex, and they then will lay eggs. And so I'm sure you've seen butterflies attached at the bottom. They attach themselves at the bottom like that, and they transfer. The male will transfer sperm to the female, and she will then lay eggs, which will hatch to become caterpillars, which will not have sex until they are adults. And talking of that kind of thing, praying mantises, of course, are well known after they have had sex for the females eating the males. So once he has lying in bliss after the conjugal affair, so the female will then eat the male, which is not a particularly attractive trait of a female praying mantis. He's still punching something. Look at that, isn't that amazing? And Marilyn in California, I sympathize with you. You say that you like this new friend of mine and he's making you quite like bugs. Well, I quite agree. When I got to the bush, I didn't want anything to do with these creepy things, but now I find them absolutely fascinating, especially the boxing variety of praying mantis. And I might actually, I'm not much of a fighter myself, but in terms of a boxing match, I think I could probably beat this mantis, mainly with just a, you know, I don't think we'll do that to him though. So they are, the insects are absolutely astonishing, because you see he's heated up now. You see that, Jeandre? He's been sitting in the sun now for a while, and now he's becoming a lot more active, a lot more able to move with speed. I'm just going to move him back towards the middle. There we go. Still punching wildly at anything that threatens him. The insects are an amazing group. They're the most numerous group of animals in the world. There are lots and lots of different orders of insects, and that's, I mean, I don't know how clued up you are on taxonomy, but for example, there will be thousands of mantis species in the world. And so a field guide, for example, like the one I've got, the chances of finding this exact species is almost negligible, but you can probably get it down to kind of a generic level. It's probably what we call a bark mantid, if I'm not horribly mistaken, but there will be lots and lots of different kinds of bark mantids. And every so often you can see he cleans off his feelers. You might even be able to see his, I'm not sure that he has a tongue, but cleaning the face now. Right, now if you watch there carefully how he cleaned his face in much the same way as a cat would, I think rather than this boxing mantis cleaning its face, let's go along and look at some real cats, real predators with Jamie. See you later.
And we have arrived with two mystery females and their buffalo kill, or what's left of their buffalo calf kill. Obviously it was a difficult night or a difficult morning for the buffalo herd. And at the moment it is incredibly hotly debated amongst the guides on the radio as to who these lions actually are and where they've come from. There's two options floating around at the moment. One is Styx females. The other is two females from the Salala breakaway group, I believe. In that case, they would be lionesses that we've never seen before. Here's the other one hiding behind the bush. We will reposition in a moment so that you can have a look at her as well. Just gonna shift it around. The two of them must have been very hungry. They've finished off most of that. And she's dragging it into a safer spot underneath the weeping wattle. What do you think, guys? I defer to your judgment. Take lots of screenshots and let's see if we can figure out who she is. Of course, we're looking for those characteristic whisker spot patterns, different on every single lion. And the back of her neck, to me, looks very scruffy. Almost like she's been mating with a male. I'm sure I see bite marks and scuff marks around there. Could be from a hunt, but it looks more to me like teeth marks. She's making sure she gets the most out of that, what's left of that little buffalo. I wonder who it could be. If it is the Salala breakaways, then they've spent time with the Matimba males in the past. I hear that they have been mating with them over the last few weeks, so that could be where those bite marks come from. If it is a Styx female, it could be one of the Styx females that was mating with one of the Birminghams. A mystery that we need to solve.
Quite a challenge for two lionesses to out of the
what's left of this buffalo tells me I can see a little bit of a horn sticking out. That tells me it was a very young or fairly young calf. And Dee, you were wondering if the older animals or the younger animals are the ones that make for easy prey for lions or leopards. It's unlikely a leopard's going to tackle or take on a buffalo herd, but in terms of easy prey, the lions are more likely to go for either calves or the older buffalo. I would say in terms of numbers, statistically, you'll probably find that calves are the ones that are most hit. But again, that depends on the pride. So even an old buffalo that's fully grown can put up a serious fight against lions. So for two lionesses on their own, it makes more sense for them to target a calf and dodge the defensive actions of the mother rather than try to take down a full-grown buffalo. But if they had males present with them when they were hunting, then they tend to go for the larger, and yes, it may be the older animals because they'll be slightly slower, possibly even moving at the back of the group. And I wondered why there was a smell wafting over me. I've just realized I parked next to the first result of her big meal. You spotted from there, Bryan. Things you want to avoid in a lion sighting? That is what quite often happens when the lion eats the rich organs, so the livers and the kidneys. Yes, definitely avoid at all costs. Do not drive over. Somehow somebody's had a very lucky escape because that tire track goes right along the edge. Definitely to be dodged. Please let me not drive through that on my way out. I've got to remember. Yeah, I think Bryan would be terribly upset with me if I did that. Don't worry, Bryan. Just give me a casual reminder if the wheel starts to stray. You're crunching away on some of the smaller rib bones. I think that's what she's got there. She's got a rib. The lions don't have the same crushing power that hyenas do, but they will gnaw away at the smaller bones and quite often take away the edge pieces of it to get good access at whatever calcium and nutrients they can get out of it. I don't think I've ever seen this lioness before, but I could be wrong. Let's see how old she might be. To me, she looks like a fairly old lioness. The other one looked quite young. I'm going to shift around and have a look when we have an opportunity. Just see who the younger one might be as well. How amazing is this? We could be looking at lions that we've never seen before, or at least I've never seen before. I'm sure for regular viewers, these two have popped onto the screen once or twice. And we're very close to the southern boundary of Arethusa, or fairly close to the southern boundary of Arethusa. It's entirely plausible. This is the area that the Salalas first moved through when they started pushing back up into this area. And it could be that these two females have done a very similar thing. I did hear an update from some of the guides in the area that the females of the Salala breakaway group were seen looking very thin near the Matimba males, and it appeared as though the Matimba males had been essentially hogging all access to prey. That generally happens with male lions. They get the lion's share. That's where the expression comes from. They're 100 kilograms bigger than the female, so they can throw their weight around very effectively and push them off the kill and get the most access to the meat and the best parts of it, which might explain why these lionesses have actually moved up into Arethusa, if it is them, to have a chance. They've probably followed the buffalo herd up here. It gives them a chance to enjoy the spoils without being interrupted by one of the Matimba males. interesting that we've got some differing opinions as to who this might be. And there's a suggestion from Power Funk Radio that this lioness looks like a Styx female. There's also somebody who suggested that it is the amber-eyed female from the Nkuhuma Pride. Teresa, I'm honestly not sure. She does have very amber eyes. That being said, one of the Styx females also has very amber eyes. It could be either of those. I can hear a squirrel shouting away. I think it's probably in response to a bird of prey. She's enjoying whatever mouthful she got there. How's it? How are you?
Yeah, good.
Good, thanks. Any idea which lionesses?
It's Salala.
Salalas, the Salala breakaways.
No, Salalas.
The Salalas. Sharp, thank you. Yeah. No, they were. That they've pushed up away from the Matimbas, entirely plausible. I'm going to, once she's had a couple more mouthfuls, I'm going to shift around so that we can see the younger lioness. She's quite a big lioness. She's got quite a broad and large face and big jaw. And she is actually, now that I think about it, but I mean this is supposition, it's almost reminiscent of the genetic line of the Salalas. The tailless lioness. And something similar, but it might be my imagination. Oh, there's a hyena. Moving on the outside, quite far on the outside. I'm not sure if Bryan's going to be able to get a view. Quite a big lioness. She's got quite a broad and large face and big jaw. And she is actually, now that I think about it, but I mean this is supposition, it's almost reminiscent of the genetic line of the Salalas. The tailless lioness. And something similar, but it might be my imagination. Oh, there's a hyena. Moving on the outside, quite far on the outside. I'm not sure if Bryan's going to be able to get a view. Hyena moving around the outskirts, waiting, I think, for an opportunity for when these lionesses leave their kill. Sorry, Bryan, I can't see it anymore. It's somewhere just cruising around the outskirts, waiting for its chance to come and join us. Now, two lionesses are more than a match for one hyena. They would not be able to push, a hyena would not be able to push these two off. But if it were to recruit more individuals from the clan to come and help, then there's a good chance that they could chase the two lionesses away. And that's where having a male around, or male lion around, can be incredibly useful as a defense mechanism. I'll wait and see if that hyena pops back into view. You never know. Might be hungry, it might decide that it's worth the risk. And I think let's shift around and change our view, and maybe we can have a look at the younger female who's with this lioness. Out of my position, and Lenny, you were a little bit confused as to what I was pointing out as the smelly thing behind, or next to my wheel. Hello, girl. It's all right. It's okay. Bless you. Stop here because we've got a. It's not the clearest view. I just wanted to settle down a little bit and get used to the idea of us being around her. She did sit up. She's actually not that young. Sorry, Lenny. In answer to your question, what was so smelly? When lions first feed on a kill, they feed on the richest parts of the organs, the ones that are very rich in iron. What that typically does is that gives them diarrhea almost straight away. And that was the result. It was poo, or I even hesitate to call it lion scat. Oh, I think that other vehicle's on its way to meeting it. Oh well. I'm going to have some smelly tires. But if you drive through lion scat or lion poo, you're going to be smelling it for a long time. And I'm not talking just maybe a couple of minutes after you've left. I'm talking the rest of the week. And nobody's going to want to drive your vehicle. Nobody's going to thank you for it. Generally, just in terms of things you don't want to do, it's quite high on the list. It also scares away other animals in the area. Very much worth paying attention to what's known in the industry as landmines, and usually you find them around a buffalo kill or a lion kill. They tend to deposit the end results of their digestive process all around, and it's so easy to forget. It's something that new guides do a lot, and I say new guides, I did it the other day, so I can't really judge. But you're so busy looking at what's happening with the lions, trying to figure the whole sighting out and figure out your best route, that you forget to check where you're driving. Hugely, hugely unpleasant smell. I don't think I need to describe it. I'm pretty sure I can leave it to your imagination. Let me know if you want any further descriptions. But I'm pretty sure you get the idea. And lions, just in general, actually, are not the most pleasant smelling of creatures. They're not they don't carry with them the sort of scent that makes you want to go and cuddle them. A combination of rotting meat smell that hangs perpetually around them. And they're also heavily parasite-ridden. You don't want to go and put your hand anywhere near I suppose that goes without saying. You don't want to go and put your bare hand anywhere near a wild lion's mouth. That's pretty obvious, but not just for the risk of having your arm bitten, but also because they carry such high parasite loads. Doesn't bother them though. Animals are so much more resilient than we will ever be. They're capable of eating carcasses that have been sitting out in the sun for days. The female at the back has acquired what would you call it? It's not a dressing, but something of a garnish. Thank you, Bryan. A garnish of weeping wattle to add to her meal of buffalo. That's exactly the word I was looking for. There you go. Some of us might put a little bit of rocket or something on our meal. She's garnished hers with weeping wattle. I'm not sure what that adds to the taste, but obviously doesn't seem to bother her. Now, as I said, the general consensus appears to be that this is the two Solala females. And Joanne, you were wondering if this is a different group to the two females and the three subadult males that we've seen in the past. And the answer is yes. The Solala pride has actually been, in all of the chaos, it has been split up to an extent. So the female without the tail, she fled, bringing the young female and the three subadult males with her. They fled away from the Matimba males because of the danger that the Matimba males posed to her subadult male cubs. And these two stayed behind. They didn't have quite the same threat level. They're both adult females. They were both then will have instantly come into false estrus to placate the Matimba males and then have mated with them. They won't be pregnant just yet because in any kind of pride takeover situation, the lioness's body responds, as I said, by going into a false estrus. And that's a way of making sure that they don't invest time and energy in producing males' offspring, and then the males just get kicked out because they haven't been firmly established enough yet. It's quite a complicated system. It is very common for lion prides to split during a takeover, which is essentially what happened. In this case, it was a takeover by the Matimba males. And they split away. It's usually the adults with sub-adult or cubs of a younger age that are still at huge risk of infanticide by the incoming males. But instead of following the other two females, they stuck around with the Matimba males, although they've made a quick break in order to enjoy some breakfast on their own. Now, I'm inclined to believe the word of one of the Elephant Plains trackers in his identification of these two as the Salalas, because they will have seen them in the past. But Eddie, Abby, you were wondering if it's the lioness that the Birmingham boys were seen mating with? And the answer, I think, is no. And in fact, I'm fairly certain it's no. The Styx lioness that's on Torchwood with them at the moment is almost certainly identified as a Styx lioness. The lioness who was with them a couple of days before that has never been identified, so that is a possibility, but unlikely. Now, lionesses are clever, and that's why I say that it's a possibility, because in her area where she's from, the Matimba males are currently in control, but they can't be with the and to trick them into believing that any babies that they bear belong to the Birmingham boys or the Matimbas. It's that same technique that we see leopards do. And there's been interesting research carried out. We always think that the pride males that are in control of an area, we always automatically assume them to be the father, but apparently in maybe up to 40% of the cases, the cubs are actually not theirs. They're just tricked into thinking that they are. And that's because the lionesses employ the same technique that female leopards do, and that's to mate with a couple of males in the area. And that means that if their dominant pride members are away, their dominant coalition members are away marking territory and patrolling elsewhere, and a strange male comes along, they've reduced the risk that he might have towards their cubs. It was a slightly convoluted explanation, but I hope you got that from what I was trying to say. Let's try and change our view again, now that that lioness has calmed down. She's resting tucked away in what is essentially a small guarri bush. Doesn't look like it's providing much shade. Well, Blair, it seems as though you agree with me as well that these are the two females from the Salala, what are thought of as the Salala breakaways, or the Mangeni pride, or possibly the Styx pride. I don't think they're Styx females. Most of the Styx are around Chitwa and Torchwood, which is quite far east of here. I would have been surprised if they'd covered that distance in essentially a day. I think it's the two females. There's a bit of confusion between or amongst the guides as to the Salalas versus the Salala breakaways, and I'm still trying to get a little bit of clarification on that. But I agree with you, Blair. I think they're Salala breakaways. She seemed to shake her head violently in response to that. Maybe she's trying to tell us something. I'm going to do another circuit, see if we can get a slightly different view. Just switch it up a little bit, especially now that the sun is starting to come out and blaze down on them. I've got a viewer watching from northwest England, and Diana, I think you're quite fortunate in only being 2 hours behind us. I just had a long chat with my brother who lives in Scotland at the moment about the time differences, because for some reason I always forget exactly where he is in time and space. And so I end up texting him very early in the morning. Well, Diana, you wanted to know, you said that since the drama with the takeover, you haven't seen any new cubs. And Diana, I don't think that first of all, I don't think that third Styx cub has survived. It hasn't been seen in weeks. And most of the guides seem to think that the Birmingham boys did get it in the end. In terms of when we can expect new cubs, there was a chance because the Styx. Oh no! Oh, sorry, Diana. I'll get back to you in one moment. I think I've done a terrible thing.
You've done an unspeakable thing.
Have I done an unspeakable thing? Oh, Bryan, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yes, I drove through some of the lion diarrhea. That's highly unpleasant. I'm probably not going to be welcome back at camp now. No. Sorry, Bryan. Bryan might decide to walk home. Oh no. Diane, in terms of when we can expect new cubs, the Styx female, the one thing that throws doubt into my mind is that one of the Styx females was mating with the Matimba male right before that takeover happened, almost to the day of that beginning of the takeover experience. And she could possibly be pregnant, and what she'll do in that case is her body would have gone into false estrus. She would have mated with the Birmingham boys whilst she was still pregnant, as a way of tricking them into thinking that they're the father of those cubs that could come from the Matimba males. That would have happened in around the middle of August. It's now middle of September, middle of October. We would start to have the potential that she's going to have cubs in the next few weeks if that mating was successful and if she got pregnant from it. So in the next few weeks, a Styx female could have cubs, which she would then hide away for another few weeks away from us. You know how lions tuck themselves away in a den. Shame. The flies are driving this poor lioness insane. It's okay though, because she's found a really comfortable way to pillow her head against a guarri bush. For the rest of the females, to finish off with a question, they will go into false estrus almost as soon as the pride takeover is complete. So they'll have been mating with the Birmingham boys, the Nkuhumas have been mating with them, the Styx have been mating with them. Those most likely will not result in pregnancies because, as I said, female lionesses have evolved a way of not investing the time and energy of producing a litter of cubs before they're certain that the new males are secure in their position. So it'll be another few months before any of the other females bear any cubs. Bless you, lion. Barbara, in order to answer your question, let me just say that having now coated my tire liberally in one of the foulest substances that we have out here, there's a good chance that we may not see any animals. So on this afternoon's drive, you'll be spending most of it on the back of Wendy as a jigger drives around and all of the animals flee within a 500-meter radius. And I certainly wouldn't blame them if they did. I'm exaggerating slightly, but Barbara, yes, the animals do respond to the smell of lion scat on a tire, and they'd respond with a fear response or a stress response, and will try and move away from it. What you'll find is they'll probably stick their heads up and start looking around them to try and figure out where the lion is. Bear in mind that lions carry a very strong scent, and for the most part the herbivores of this area are used to encountering it. But with it, if it suddenly arrives in the form of a tire, it tends to disturb them because it makes them wonder where the lion is hiding. What I plan to do, if you're wondering about the various techniques of lion scat removal process. I'm going to go and find a deep drainage line, and I'm going to drive through it. And hopefully the sand sticking to the particles of scat will help to dislodge. Unfortunately, there's no rivers to drive through, otherwise I'd drive backwards and forwards a couple of times. Eddie Abbey, the next option, of course, if the drainage line system fails, is bleach. It does work, but you'd be surprised at how very thorough you have to be, because if you don't get all of the bits of lion scat that you've placed in the tread of your tires, you're still going to have that smell accompanying you. So yes, bleach is the next option. The next option after that is possibly abandoning the car somewhere in a drainage line and leaving it for a couple of months.
Just burn it.
Burn it. Bryan says burn it. Bryan says it's the end. Burn the tires. There is no other option. Oh. She's shifting the kill around. She's slightly bigger than the other lioness, and she's trying to find a nice comfortable position. Apparently there wasn't enough garnish on it before. Pat, you're watching all the way in Washington, and you're trying to figure out exactly how this whole Solala issue's working. So we've got the adult female that we've seen regularly without the tail, accompanied by a female that is very young, right on the cusp of being an adult. So let's call her the sub-adult female. Neither of these two are sub-adults. They're both adult females. And as far as I know, that essentially completes the female makeup of the Solala Pride at the moment. Unless there is one... No, that should be about right. And then there's the 3 young males who are accompanying their mother around the area. I'm going to try and shift backwards so that we can at least get a view now that she's stuck her head quite thoroughly in the weeping wattle. Let's try and see her. I'm just going to liberally recoat my tire. I'm desperately trying to figure out the reason behind namings. Janet, you wanted to know why the ones left behind would be called the breakaways. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Please give me a little bit of time to try and figure it out. I'm going to have to tie some guides down and get some answers from them. I think they are called the Solala breakaways because of a previous breakaway. So they broke away from the Solala Pride before this, quite possibly in their own way to defend their cubs. That being said, I need to fully clarify that. When I spoke to one of the trackers now, he said that they were not the Solala breakaways, they were just the Solalas. And I'm not sure where that leaves the Solala breakaways, because then I'm not sure who the Solala breakaways are and what their dynamic is. As far as I always understood, the Solala breakaways were 2 females, 2 adult females on their own, which most likely is these 2. Janet, I'm sorry, I can't give you a better answer. Using her paw to really get in there. And we're getting a bit more clarification. Thank you, Blair. Okay. There we go. We've got some sense as clarified by Blair. Okay, let's try this again. The Solala breakaways are a pride of 13 from a previous breakaway during a previous takeover, probably, in my opinion, during the Majingi's time, or the Majingi takeover, the Majingilane male coalition. These 2 are the Solalas from the main pride, as are the others that we've seen with the sub-adult males, but they've moved away to try and escape the Matimbas, leaving only these two members as the more permanently based members of the Salala Pride. Thank you, Blair, for clearing that up. I've been in a state of constant confusion. You have quite happily solved that problem for me. And as a further addition to confusion, just to make things a little, just to add that little stir to the naming pot, the Salala Breakaways are also now known as the Mangeni Pride. The Birmingham boys are now known as the Gowrie Males, from different guides in different areas, since they came from the Gowrie area. And all in all, I am going to try and get to terms with the Salalas. But that being said, I'm so excited to see new females. Oh, there's going to be some growling. I can hear some growling. A very gentle warning to stay away from the kill. And the entire time that we've been here, this female has dominated the buffalo kill, although they've both had equal access to food. They both look as though they've swallowed beach balls overnight. But the female with the carcass has been very protective over it. When we first arrived, she picked it up and dragged it away from the other female. Now, a little baby buffalo is not a meal to be scoffed at for two lionesses. Although it is a once-off thing, they're going to leave this probably later today. There's a good couple of kilograms of meat in it. It's kept them well fed, given them some very full bellies. And it must be a huge relief for them to not have to share it with those Matimba males, because one Matimba male could finish off a buffalo calf by himself. At least these two lionesses were able to share and get a good meal out of it, using that rough tongue of hers, incredibly spiny, and that's another weapon in her armory. Interesting observation. If we could just get her to smile at us, you might be able to answer Brenda's question. Brenda, you were wondering if she's got a missing left fang. I hadn't noticed, but I must admit I was just... Yes, you're right. Well done, Brenda. That was very impressive. She's not missing it, it's broken. So there's a bit of a stump where it was, but there is definitely not a full lion canine tooth. There we go. I just see that stump sticking out there. That was very, very well observed, Brenda. Well, there you go. We will never ever mistake this lioness again. It's actually not that common to see lionesses, unless they're very old, with broken or missing canines. We'll take note of that as an identifying feature. Oh, Bryan, I'm so sorry. The smell is just wafting. Well, we've been spending time with a new set of lionesses for me. I believe that James is headed back to explore his Senegal lapwing nest that he found yesterday afternoon. So let's have a look and see if there's any action on the egg side, and I will be back with you very shortly.
Egg Eggs for breakfast. Not these ones though. These ones are the eggs of the little Senegal lapwing, and we came past here. We knew where the nest was. It wasn't an incredible spotting feat on my part. We knew they were here, and the lapwings are not around. They're out foraging, obviously. In fact, there is one there, Jeandre. If we just go up a little bit away, watching us very carefully. There is the mother bird there. And so 4 little eggs that the lapwing, Senegal lapwing, there she is, has laid and is looking after very carefully. So we certainly wouldn't get out of the car to go and point them out or anything like that. That would stress her out horribly. She doesn't know what the camera's looking at. Then, on the side of birds and their youngsters, being the breeding season, Scott very cleverly the other day managed to get a picture of a lilac-breasted roller's nest, and we went back into the same thing, and we filmed it with this telephone, which I've now managed to ruin. There we go, here we go. Okay, now what we're going to do is show you, or try to show you, the image of, how's that, Jeandre? Can you see anything there?
Yeah.
Okay, now it's about 18 seconds long, and you can see it's grown already since Scott did this, and the bird is it's starting to get slightly lilac feathers on its wings, and there it moves. There you can see that. Isn't that sweet? So we'll keep doing that every so often. We'll keep doing that and just checking to see how those birds are doing. Thank you, Jeffrey in Texas. Apparently you had a look at that boxing mantis and you said you thought it might be a bark mantis. I would agree. I think it's probably one of the bark mantises. Lots of different kinds of them, of course, but perhaps one of the bark mantises. Right, on we go. Okay, so we're going to head off towards our breakfast. So we're not going to tarry too long with you. Thank you very much for your questions and comments today. Thank you, Jeandre, for your efforts on drive, rather than doing this driving. For your last few minutes of drive, we'll send you back to Jamie, who is sitting with Tebs and the lions. And we'll see you this afternoon. Bye-bye, and thanks a lot.
Well, when I started this morning's sunrise safari, I certainly didn't expect to get lucky enough to see 2 lionesses that I've never seen before. For some reason, that's always an exciting experience, and so far, weirdly, I feel like most of my experiences with new lion prides have been with Bryan. Well, there you go, Bryan. We're continuing on with our pattern. I'm apologizing again for exposing both of us to the scent of lion scat. Thank you to all of you for your suggestions as to removal of it. I will possibly end up trying most of them. We'll see how we go, and failing that, burning the tire and buying a new one. Bryan's nodding in agreement. I think that he feels that is possibly the only viable solution to the scent of lion scat attached to your tire. I'm not exaggerating, it's terrible. It is so smelly. Now, Clay, you might have missed the update from this morning, right? We've got the 2 Salalas from the main pride. There's also, of course, that female without the tail and the 3 young sub-adult males. Clay, I have some wonderful news, and I'm so glad that I was wrong about this. It appears as though that sub-adult male is alive. He hasn't been seen now in 2 days, but it's really, really crucial that he reunites with the rest of that group as quickly as possible. He is just too young to be out and about on his own, but still, I'm thrilled to say that I was wrong. I really thought the Birmingham boys had killed him, and I'm happy to hear that he escaped them. He's obviously more resilient than I myself gave him credit for. Very impressed with him, especially given the injury that he had, although it seems to be healing up very nicely. So wonderful news, and accompany with these 2 lionesses and fantastic prospects for our afternoon drive. There's a good chance these guys are going to head across to Arathusa Dam, so keep your eyes peeled. After a meal of buffalo, there's nothing better than a slightly weedy drink. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us on a sunrise safari. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have. And of course, a big thank you and welcome back again to Bryan. It's great to have you on board with us, as well as to James, Jeandre and Tebs, who are on the back of Wendy. Big thanks to Nikki and Tara, who've been filling us in on the whole lion situation and, of course, passing across your brilliant questions. Well, wherever you are in the world, have a fantastic day or a fantastic evening, and we will catch you for the sunset safari. Bye-bye for now.